You ever notice how every small town's got a fixture, some statue, some old clock tower, maybe a flag that's seen a few too many 4th of Julys? Well, in Millage, it wasn't any of that. It was just Hal Mercer's corner booth at the diner, tucked where maple meets pine. I mean, it's almost funny, right? Some folks have bridges or libraries. We had a man with a seat and a habit. The bell above the door would do this soft little ring at exactly 6:42 a.m., and in would walk Hal, a bit hunched, not in any rush, always that same jacket, faded, threadbare, with patches so old they looked like ghost stories stitched right in. He'd barely be through the door before Darlene would spot him. "Morning, sugar," she'd call, already reaching for the coffee pot. Black, never cream. Hal would just nod, slide into that booth with this little smile, place his beat-up leather notebook next to the salt shaker, and fold his coat, patch right on display, that you'd never dare to ask what it meant. The place smelled like maple syrup and old stories. He'd open up the Millage Tribune, shake it out like he was prepping for a sermon, and everyone just let him be. Nobody ever asked where he came from or why he never missed a day, didn't need to, really. He was as much a part of that place as the chipped formica or the jukebox that seemed to hit Sinatra every Monday without fail. Every morning, Hal ordered the same stack of buttermilk pancakes, no butter, 2 strips of bacon, and, before Darlene could even set down his plate, he'd already have left a folded $3 bill under the saucer. Ritual. Like clockwork. At 6:47 sharp, in would barrel Brandon Hale, clipboard, folder stuffed with God knows what, always acting like the world was half on fire. "Big week ahead, people," he'd shout, breezing by retirees like he owned the air. Needed a triple shot just to function, apparently. Darlene would raise an eyebrow. "How behind are you on manners, sweetheart?" And Brandon would just grin, then spot Hal, and you could feel the room shift, just a little. "Still got the throne, huh, Hal?" he'd say, loud enough for everyone to hear, like maybe he wanted a reaction. But Hal didn't even look up, just kept reading. Darlene brought over his breakfast, set it down soft. "That man pulled my Norman off Miller Street when a car jumped the curb, broke his own wrist. Wouldn't say a word about it," she told Brandon, like she was reminding him there's history here, not just headlines. Brandon blinked, didn't know that. A lot of things he didn't know. So Brandon wandered over, arms crossed, and nodded at Hal's jacket. "That thing belong in a donation bin?" he joked, eyeing the faded patch. Hal turned a page, watched ticking quiet under Sinatra's croon. Brandon laughed, a little meaner this time. "Hope it makes it to the parade." Darlene stopped what she was doing, and the air got thick. Hal just stilled, didn't say a word. Brandon tapped the table. "Big week. I'll leave you to your rituals." The bell over the door chimed as he left, softer this time, like even it knew better than to cut through the silence. And that was Hal, every Monday in Mosswood Park too, before the mist burned off, sweeping leaves off benches nobody else remembered to clean. You'd find him there, gloved hand brushing off old wood, canvas tote at his feet, clothes, thermos, a tiny American flag. He'd kneel at the plaques, Lieutenant Thomas Callahan, Sergeant Diane Luring polishing the names, straightening flowers, propping up the little flags so they stood just so. He did it like prayer. One morning, as he was setting up, Brandon stormed over, city clipboard in hand, telling Hal he wasn't supposed to be there until the permits were signed off. Hal didn't argue, just nodded and stuck a little wooden sign in the ground. "Remember them," handwritten in blocky letters. "Did you make that?" Brandon asked, but before Hal could answer, Tina Alvarez, park crew, tough as they come, stepped out from the hedges. "He makes one every year. I always leave it." Brandon mumbled something about city rules, but Tina just shrugged. "He's been here longer than your permit." That was Tina. She knew what mattered. Mr. Ogden, bundled on a bench, watched Hal with this kind of quiet awe, saluting with a shaky hand. "That man's been doing this since before my oldest was born," Tina said under her breath, and you could hear the respect in it. That's the thing, people saw the jacket, but never asked. Brandon still had a chip on his shoulder, still wearing that thing, huh? But Hal would just pull his collar up, nod to Mr. Ogden, and move on, silent as ever. Tina watched Brandon fiddle with the wooden sign. "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" Brandon shrugged. Veterans Day in Millage was earnest and messy, little too cold. Brass band out of tune, folks in folding chairs with programs fluttering in the wind. Brandon stood at the podium in a sport coat too light for November, already lost his place, nerves showing. "Please welcome General Ella Torrance, decorated veteran," he said. The general, a silver-haired woman with this look in her eye like she scanned 1,000 crowds, stepped up, but mid-stride, she spotted Hal sitting on a far bench, cane across his lap, Patch barely visible. And right then, she stepped down, walked straight across the grass, boots silent, crowd hushed, and snapped a salute at Hal. Not one of those stiff TV salutes. No, this was sharp, precise, real. The crowd gasped. A kid pointed. That's Mr. Hal. General Torrance held that salute, then said, calm and clear, that Patch was only given to 5 men. He's the last one standing. Silence spread through the park. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Hal finally stood, nodded once, and returned the salute as taps started up on the trumpet. After that, the booth sat empty for the first time in years. Hal's jacket, neatly folded, Patch showing, rested beside a coffee receipt with his name in looping script. Brandon walked in the next morning, quieter than usual, eyes on the booth. He sat down, found a napkin folded under the jacket, 5 words. Some honors don't come with ceremony. Darlene brought him coffee, slid into the booth. He asked if Hal said anything, just wanted his usual table, she said. Tina joined them, told her own story. 2 winters ago, storm cut the power, couldn't get a crew out. Saturday morning, every path in the park was shoveled, lanterns rewired. Hal did it. Paid for the bulbs himself. Signed the receipt, H. Mercer, night crew. That's who he was, just showed up, never needed applause. That jacket suddenly felt heavier, like a question you forgot to ask your own grandfather. Brandon knew he had to find out more. So he walked to the library. Millage didn't have much tech, but it had Maggie, and Maggie knew everyone. Looking for anything on Hal Mercer, Brandon said. Maggie just smiled. You won't find him on Google. The truth's curled up in drawer 6B. Old news, yellowed clippings, microfilm humming. There it was, 5 rescued from nightfall drop. Hero remains unnamed. The article talked about a rescue under blackout, a triangle patch not yet in inventory. That's him, Maggie whispered. Why didn't anyone follow up? He never answered the door. Didn't need to. Brandon found Hal's address, a tiny place off Chestnut, mailbox hanging loose. No answer, but the neighbor, Thomas, leaned over, said, he'll be at Hillrest Cemetery, Sunday, 3 p.m. Every year. Rain or shine. Brandon went, of course. That Sunday he waited. Hal arrived, jacketless, just a white flower in hand. They stood together by Lieutenant Callahan's grave, neither speaking, both laying down their flowers. He was 23, called me Cap, even though I was younger. I come every year. Because I can. Why are you here? Hal asked. Brandon just said, because I should have listened sooner. And Hal stayed, just a moment longer. Not long after, the school held career day. Hal, no uniform, just a plain sweater, was invited to speak. One condition, no applause, he said. He stood before the kids, voice steady. Not all service wears a uniform. Sometimes it's the quiet job, the one no one sees. When I was 19, I carried a man 3 miles through the jungle. He told me, don't stop. Keep walking. So I did. Sometimes you speak up. Sometimes you just carry. Not a sound in the room. A student asked, what did the patch mean? Hal just said, it meant I went where others wouldn't. That was enough. A week later, Brandon visited the library again. Maggie led him to a display case, Hal's jacket inside, patch forward, brass plate underneath. He reminded us. Across the room, Norman Jr., the kid Hal once saved, tugged at his dad's sleeve. Can I wear a jacket like his someday? Nobody answered, not right away, but you could feel the hope. See, Hal Mercer never needed applause. And maybe that's why he mattered. Sometimes, the folks who never ask for attention, the ones who carry more than they speak, end up meaning the most. That old jacket, frayed, faded, became something else. A reminder that dignity and sacrifice aren't always shiny. That real worth can be quiet, worn, and hard to spot. So here's my question for you. What do you think makes a life honorable? Is it the parades and the headlines, or is it the quiet stuff, like sweeping leaves before sunrise or saving a kid without waiting for thanks? Drop your thoughts below, because I think the loudest legacy is sometimes the one that never shouts.